Welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. My name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. I'm an award-winning master-level therapist, and I also have an MBA. I'm the creator of a cognitive restructuring program entitled The Lies That Bind. This show exposes and challenges dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in self-defeating behaviors repeatedly, despite the consequences. This show is streamed live via Facebook and YouTube every Thursday from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, welcome to the Emancipated Mind Show. Hello, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I'm also known as the locksmith because I make keys for locks in the mind. Welcome to episode 15 of the Emancipated Mind Show. This is a show that exposes the root causes of many problems that people face. Problems such as self-sabotage, procrastination, people-pleasing, dysfunctional relationships, perfectionisms, addictions, low self-esteem, codependency, and unrealistic expectations. Tonight's topic is unrealistic expectations. This is the third episode in which I'm addressing that particular problem. During the first unrealistic expectation episode, I talked about the unrealistic expectations that people attach to others based on the labels they wear. In the second in the series, I talked about how people put unrealistic expectations on themselves. So tonight, I'm going to discuss how individuals put unrealistic expectations on others. This is the final episode on unrealistic expectations. So a little bit more about me. I introduced myself during the introduction, and I said I'm a master's level therapist, meaning I have a master's in social work. I also have a master's in business administration, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means is I have not used any drugs or alcohol in over 22 years. I'm also a person in long-term recovery from trauma. And so the subjects that I cover during my episodes, I'm not just speaking from the perspective of someone who went to school. I'm also speaking from the perspective of someone who's had to conquer all of the different issues that I address during these episodes. So like I said, tonight, we're going to talk about putting unrealistic expectations on others. Now, you should have expectations for people and how they treat you, but the expectations should not be unrealistic. Some individuals have been raised in environments in which those type of expectations were normalized, so they don't even know that they're unrealistic. So there are dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in that self-defeating behavior. Yes, putting unrealistic expectations on yourself and others is a self-defeating behavior. So I'm going to break that down tonight. But first, I'm going to expose one of the dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to do that. Whenever you hear me use the terms lies, issues, unaddressed issues, or the buttons people push, as I use those terms interchangeably, I'm referring to the same thing. I'm referring to dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to make self-defeating decisions despite what they consciously know they should do. So here's the dysfunctional belief that we're going to unpack today. You have a right to put realistic expectations on others, and they have to meet them or else. Now, I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of people doing that mostly because of victim-based beliefs. So even though this is what I call a villain-based belief, there are a lot of victim-based beliefs that cause people to put unrealistic expectations on others. So I have a set of the 100 most commonly seen victim lies and a set of the 100 most commonly seen villain lies. So I'm going to talk about victim and villain lies tonight as I unpack this topic. So I have a worksheet that I've used for years with people in my cognitive restructuring groups. And I don't know if you can see it here. This is the worksheet, putting unrealistic expectations on others. I think the graphic is pretty cute, and it sums up what a lot of people unintentionally do. They have these flaming hoops that they want people to jump through, and they don't realize that's what they're doing. So on the front of the worksheet, I start by asking people to identify some of the unrealistic expectations that people put on them. I want them to see that they can operate out of both dysfunctional beliefs. So the last episode, I talked about how people allow others to put unrealistic expectations on them. But people who struggle with the victim belief, people have a right to put unrealistic expectations on you and you have to meet them, or else they can also struggle with the villain belief. You have a right to put unrealistic expectations on others and they have to meet them, or else. People can struggle with both beliefs. So before we start talking about, in that group that I conduct, before we start talking about the unrealistic expectations that the group members struggle with putting on others, first, we talk about the unrealistic expectations that they allow others to put on them. So, for example, some individuals say that some people that they interact with expect them to be there for them all the time, but those individuals are never there for them. They said that they interact with people who expect them to read their minds, meaning that people won't say what they want, but they'll get upset if they don't get what they want, but they never articulated it. That's an unrealistic expectation. They said they've interacted with people who have expected them to assume all of their responsibilities, which is unrealistic. They said they've interacted with people who expect them to be perfect, to know exactly what they know, or that means that they're incompetent, or they call them stupid if they don't have the exact same information that they have. That's an unrealistic expectation, especially if you don't know if those individuals have been taught what you have been taught. They said they've interacted with people who have expected them to protect them at their expense, to take better care of them than they take care of themselves, to never need help, to be strong all the time, and to accept maltreatment continuously without ever speaking up or saying anything. And the reason I start off with asking the group members to identify the unrealistic expectations that people put on them is because I want to help them see that in a lot of cases, they're putting the same unrealistic expectations on others. So that's when we get to the second part of the worksheet. So with this particular topic, I don't come in the front door, so to speak, on people. I go in, I address this issue by going in the back door. So before we identify the exact unrealistic expectations, or before I help the group members identify the unrealistic expectations that they put on others, we talk about their issues, because their issues, unaddressed issues, cause individuals to put unrealistic expectations on others. It's like it's combined. And so we start out by identifying some of the issues that the group members struggle with. And so people have, these are examples of answers people have given me over the years, and I've been working in this industry for a little over 20 years. So the question is, I ask people to identify some of the unaddressed issues that they struggle with on a deep level. So people have told me that they struggle with low self-esteem, people pleasing, trying to change people instead of working on changing themselves. That they struggle with gravitating towards unhealthy people and entering into relationships with them. They struggle with setting boundaries. They don't communicate their wants or needs to others. They struggle with following rules. They talk about problems, constantly without talking about solutions. So they just talk about the same problems over and over and over again. They stay in dysfunctional relationships way past the expiration date. And in some cases, they refuse to assume personal responsibility for their actions, or just they refuse to assume personal responsibilities for things that they should be doing for themselves. And so people have told me in my groups that they struggle with these issues. So after we make the list of issues, then I help them connect how those issues produce unrealistic expectations. So I literally write the list of unrealistic expectations on one side of the whiteboard in the room, and then I draw a line to help them see the connection. And then on the other side of the board, I start helping them unpack the unrealistic expectations that they place on others based on the issues that they struggle with. So let's go back to the list of their unaddressed issues. So people have told me that they struggle with low self-esteem. So what's the unrealistic expectation that low self-esteem make people who are afflicted by that issue put on others? Now, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations that low self-esteem will cause the afflicted individual to put on others, but we're going to talk about one. So one unrealistic expectation is that they tend to expect others to like them more than they like themselves. So a lot of individuals who struggle with low self-esteem, they don't like themselves, they make self-debasing remarks, constantly putting themselves down because that's what the issue makes them do. But then they feel hurt and rejected when other people don't want to be around them or don't want to be in relationships with them, because they are expecting other people to like them more than they like themselves. Even though a lot of their dialogue, the conversations that they have, they're giving people reasons not to want to be around them. For example, a lot of people who struggle with low self-esteem, I've heard people over the years say things like, I know I'm probably getting on your nerves. Why are you with me? Why are you hanging out with me? Like they're questioning people's motives for being with them because they struggle with liking themselves. But there's an unconscious belief. There's lots of unconscious beliefs that cause low self-esteem, but here's one of them. One of the dysfunctional unconscious beliefs, also known as lie, that cause people to have low self-esteem is the lie, there's something wrong with you. Now, I really deconstructed this lie this past Tuesday during my Facebook Live series entitled The Lie is Lying to Me. So if you would like to hear more about this lie, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it tonight, if you really want to hear me break it down, scroll down in the timeline and watch the recording of my Facebook Live episode this past Tuesday from a series that I do every Tuesday, and I'm going to do it for 5 more weeks, entitled The Lie is Lying to Me. But individuals who struggle with low self-esteem, they often struggle with this particular belief that there's something wrong with them. But this issue, low self-esteem, and the belief there's something wrong with you, makes them put the unrealistic expectation on others to like them more than they like themselves. So people have told me that they struggle with people pleasing. So what's the unrealistic expectation that people pleasing cause individuals to put on others? Well, one unrealistic expectation is that people who struggle with people pleasing expect others to be pleased with their efforts to please. So a lot of individuals do things under the umbrella of people pleasing because they're seeking external validation from others. And then when they don't get it, when people that they're seeking validation from do not give them the validation, they feel hurt, they feel angry, they feel rejected. But there's a belief, there's a dysfunctional belief that causes individuals to struggle with people pleasing. There's lots of belief, but here's one of the culprits. Your worth and value as a person is dependent upon the approval of others. This belief causes people pleasing behaviors, and individuals who struggle with people pleasing often get upset when others are not pleased with their efforts to please, because those other individuals that they're doing all these things for in an attempt to be validated, they're not making them do all those things. The dysfunctional belief is making the afflicted individual do all of those things, seeking validation. So another issue or unaddressed issue that people said they struggle with is trying to change people instead of working on changing themselves. They said that they have a issue of gravitating towards unhealthy people and entering into relationships with them. So how do those issues of gravitating towards unhealthy people and try to make people change instead of changing themselves, how does those two issues make people put unrealistic expectations on others? Well, it makes them expect people to change so that they don't have to change. So people who struggle with issues or dysfunctional beliefs such as any sort of mate is better than no mate, that issue causes individuals to often gravitate towards unhealthy relationships, or to meet a person and a week later enter into a significant other relationship with them, or meet someone and 2 days later label that person a friend. And then a couple of weeks later or a month later, when they've been abused or manipulated or taken advantage of, they get upset. They're upset because they expect others to wear signs, I'm unhealthy, instead of working on the issue that makes them enter into relationships with people before they get to know them. We're talking about putting unrealistic expectations on others. And I'm not saying that the individuals who do it, that it's their fault. They're not aware. A lot of this, most of these types of behaviors are generated by unconscious beliefs. It's hard to fight an invisible enemy. And that's my specialty, exposing and challenging dysfunctional, unconscious beliefs that cause people to engage in the same self-defeating behaviors repeatedly, despite the consequences. So another issue is failure to set boundaries. A lot of people struggle with setting and enforcing boundaries, but there's an unrealistic expectation attached to that issue. A lot of individuals expect others to respect boundaries that they've never articulated. So they have this issue that makes them afraid to speak up, to challenge people, to set and enforce boundaries. But then that same issue causes them to put unrealistic expectations on others to respect boundaries that they've never articulated, never enforced, right? But there's a dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that supports that self-defeating behavior. Here's one of them. There's several, but here's one of them. Don't make waves. I call this belief, I've nicknamed it the internal mute button. A lot of people struggle with it. This belief tells individuals you don't have a right to speak up. You don't have a right to set boundaries. You don't have a right to challenge anything anyone's doing or saying to you. So they have this issue, but then they also have the unrealistic expectation for others to respect a boundary that this issue will not let them communicate. And that is an unrealistic expectation. You can get free from all of this. I'm just breaking down the issue, but there is hope. That's my specialty, is helping people work through these dysfunctional beliefs so that they can stop engaging in self-defeating behaviors. So we talked about the issue of that a lot of people, we mentioned the issue that a lot of people say they struggle with, and they struggle with not following rules. So a lot of people get in trouble. They get a lot of speeding tickets, or they lose jobs. They don't follow rules. And so there's an unconscious belief that causes people to disobey rules or disregard rules. Here's one of them. There's lots of beliefs, but here's one of them. There are no rules. So even though they consciously know there's rules, they see the speeding limit sign, but this belief says there are no rules. And the ones that you see posted, they don't apply to you. So because of that issue, that's the issue. Just like not being able to speak up. And you see the different colors of the cards. The blue cards, these are what I call the victim-based beliefs or issues. The red cards are what I call the villain-based issues or beliefs. So it doesn't matter if a person is operating out of a victim-based belief or a villain-based belief. Both types of beliefs cause individuals to put unrealistic expectations on others. So the belief there are no rules, it will cause individuals to expect others to continuously bail them out of situations that they got into because they don't obey rules. So a lot of people who are afflicted by this issue, there are no rules, they get arrested, and they literally expect people to continuously bail them out of jail. But then they have other types of problems, like they may lose a job because they didn't come to work on time. They no call, they no show, no call. They're breaking a rule when they do that. So they get fired. So then they expect other people to take care of them until they find another job, or to help them do things, that they can no longer do because they don't have a job. They expect others to contact their probation officer when they don't want to show up because they know that they're going to get in trouble. So they'll ask someone, call my probation officer and tell them such and such happened and I won't be able to come down and show up. So they expect others to do things for them that in a lot of cases, people are like, I'm not doing that. But then they get upset. They get upset because the belief, the issue makes them put that unrealistic expectation on others. So another issue that I mentioned was people struggle with talking about problems, the same problems over and over again, instead of thinking or talking about solutions or trying to find ways to address the problem. But there are dysfunctional unconscious beliefs that cause people to do that. One of them is this belief: talk very profoundly about the problem, but take no action to change anything. That belief causes individuals to talk about the problem over and over and over, but they don't just talk about the problem. This particular belief causes individuals to talk very profoundly. So they may use quotes, and it's really good quotes. They quote famous people, and they quote scriptures, and they quote lines from songs, and a lot of what they're saying is really relevant to the problem, but it's not talking about, they don't talk about a solution. Those quotes are not solution focused that they talk about. And so there's an unrealistic expectation associated with the issue of talking about the problem over and over again. Individuals who are afflicted by this belief or this issue, they often expect others to assume the responsibility of addressing those problems for them. So they'll sit with people and they'll talk about the same problem over and over again. And then they have this unspoken expectation that the people who they're talking to about that problem is going to solve it for them. And when they don't, because it's not their problem to solve, they feel hurt, they feel angry, they feel betrayed. But it's the issue that's producing the unrealistic expectation, and it's the issue producing the negative feelings. So the final one that I'm going to talk about, unrealistic expectation, I'm going to talk about the issue that causes people to expect others to do for them what they will not do for themselves. So a lot of people struggle with learned helplessness, irresponsibility. They struggle with those issues from their childhood. All of these issues that we talked about tonight, that I talked about, people don't give themselves these issues. They're usually programmed into their minds during the formative years. So a lot of people struggle with this dysfunctional unconscious belief. Expect others to do for you what you will not do for yourself, and get angry and resentful when they won't. So people who struggle with this issue, they have the unrealistic expectation that others are going to assume their responsibilities. And when they don't, they feel hurt and betrayed. They feel rejected, not because of what's happening, but because of the unrealistic expectation that's associated with the issue. So I'm going to read some of the feelings, because after we do this in my group setting, after people give me this information and I put it on the board, I give them a list of feelings that have negative and positive feelings. And I say, identify the feelings that these unrealistic expectations produce. How do you feel when people won't meet your expectations, even though they're unrealistic? They don't know they're unrealistic. How do you feel? So they told me they feel hurt, resentful, humiliated, dependent, weak, confused, frustrated, envious, trapped, antagonistic, threatened, regretful, lonely, discontented, provoked, rejected, and unimportant. That's a lot of negative feelings to walk around experiencing every day. Every day. And people that I work with, they didn't just have one or two of these issues that caused them to put unrealistic expectations on others. In a lot of cases, most of them on the list that I've identified, they can relate to all of them or most of them. So that's a lot of unrealistic expectations, and that's a lot of negative feelings to walk around experiencing every single day based on something that's going on in their mind. Not based on anything that someone's actually doing to them, but their perception about what's happening. So now I'm going to identify some strategies that I've helped people understand throughout the years who struggle with this issue of putting unrealistic expectations on others. There's some strategies that can help them stop putting unrealistic expectations on others. For the unrealistic expectation of expecting others to like you more than you like yourself, you can stop expecting people to like you more than you like yourself and start learning how to develop a healthy relationship with yourself. People treat you the way you allow them, and they get clues on how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. So a lot of times I've worked with people where I've had to help them understand that all of this energy that they're investing in trying to make someone like them or make someone love them, I'm like, I've helped them understand it's better for you to reallocate that energy to you developing a healthy relationship with yourself, which is going to cause you to give off clues that will attract healthier people into your life. People get clues on how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. And so another strategy, instead of trying to change other people, because that's the unrealistic expectation that we talked about earlier that a lot of people struggle with, they struggle with expecting people to change instead of working on changing the issues that make them gravitate towards unhealthy people. So what can they do to change that or fix that issue? Start working on changing yourself instead of trying to change other people. If you keep finding yourself in toxic, unhealthy relationships and you're expecting other people to change and be healthy and get themselves together, you can stop wasting all that time and energy and start addressing the issue that's causing you to enter into relationships with unhealthy people. It's a better use of your time and energy to work on yourself so that you can make better relationship choices instead of putting a lot of energy and effort into trying to make people change. It's hard enough to change yourself. So it's hard work to change yourself. It is really a losing battle trying to make people change. I heard one of my mentors say, he said, so a lot of people try to change him. And he said, well, you were attracted to who you met. He said, so why do you want to make me change? He said, and then after you'd have made me somebody else that you was never attracted to anyway, now you don't want me. Now I know it's a little deeper than that, but I just thought that was funny. You know, why would you try to change a person into someone that they're not instead of just finding somebody who's a little more like what you're looking for? But these dysfunctional unconscious beliefs cause people to do things like that. So another strategy to help you stop putting unrealistic expectations on others is to learn how to set boundaries and not expect people to respect the boundary you haven't set. So I've talked about it before. It's unrealistic to expect a person to respect a boundary you've never communicated. So a lot of people who struggle with setting boundaries with people, they don't struggle with protecting their carpet. Like if you come in their house and they got nice carpet and they live in a state where there's snow and ice or, you know, even a lot of rain and mud that gets on people's shoes, they have rules about their carpet. They don't have a problem protecting their carpet. They will tell an individual, you have to take your shoes off before you come into my home. But a lot of those individuals don't have rules about how a person has to treat them. And so I challenge people with that. I'm like, you protect your carpet. A lot of people are like, I struggle with standing up for myself or speaking up for myself. And I know it's this one of these unconscious beliefs. There's lots of them, but this is one of the beliefs. Don't make waves, but they'll make a wave about that carpet. I said, and so I challenge them. People are like, you are right, Miss Freeman. I don't let people walk all over my carpet with their muddy shoes, but they'll let people walk all over their heart. They don't have terms and conditions about individuals being in their lives, but they have terms and conditions about their carpet. And so another strategy to help people stop putting unrealistic expectations on others is to make a list of all of your personal responsibilities and make sure that you're taking care of them instead of expecting others to do that for you. Now, there's two types of responsibilities that individuals expect others to assume for them. Some people literally expect others to assume their responsibilities, such as paying their bills or taking care of their children. And it's attached to this dysfunctional belief, expect others to do for you what you will not do for yourself, and get angry and resentful when they won't. But then there's other people who struggle with this same dysfunctional belief, but they expect others to take care of them emotionally. I'm not talking about looking for support. We all need support from each other from time to time. I'm talking about they expect people to fix, manage, and control their feelings. They expect people to walk on eggshells around them so their unaddressed issues are never triggered. And that is also expecting someone to assume your responsibilities. That's expecting others to take care of you emotionally, which is your responsibility. And that's an unrealistic expectation. So I'll do one more. So some people expect others, we talked about it earlier, to bail them out of situations that they got into because they don't obey rules. So what's a better strategy? A better strategy is to start respecting rules, like don't speed, go to work. If you can't make it to work, call in, and let them know you're not coming, start obeying rules. And so you can stop expecting other people to bail you out of situations that your issues got you in. That's a much better strategy. So I'm going to read the functional belief that challenges the dysfunctional belief that you have a right, that says you have a right to put unrealistic expectations on others and they have to meet them or else. We've talked about a lot of unrealistic expectations that individuals put on others, but this belief is laying down there under all those other beliefs as the foundation for unrealistic expectations. Why would you want to stress and torment others with unrealistic expectations? What sense does that make? You wouldn't want anyone doing that to you. In fact, you would probably tell others where to go and what to do with their unrealistic expectations if they try to put them on you. Now, that's some people, but some people, they struggle with both beliefs. So they struggle with people have a right to put unrealistic expectations on you and you have to meet them or else. So they do let people put unrealistic expectations on them, and they struggle with the belief you have a right to put that. You can have both. You have a right to put unrealistic expectations on others. So in that case, that doesn't apply to the people who have both beliefs. People have the same right you do. When people have the same right you do when you are making crazy demands on them. They have a right to say no. It's unrealistic to expect people to consider your needs with no consideration to their needs. It's unrealistic to expect people to read your mind because you won't speak up. It's unrealistic to expect people to protect you at their expense based on your bad decisions. So that's that belief. There are no rules that cause people to get into a lot of problems, a lot of bad situations, and they keep expecting others to bail them out. It's unrealistic to expect people to assume your responsibilities. And that's based on that belief. Expect others to do for you what you will not do for yourself and get angry and resentful when they won't. That's unrealistic expectation. Expect people to assume your responsibilities. It's unrealistic to expect people to accept abuse from you without question. Learn the difference between unrealistic and realistic. And so that's a process. And I hopefully that some of the information that I've given tonight will help you understand the difference between realistic and unrealistic expectations. You have a right to have expectations for others. They just don't have to be unrealistic. It doesn't make any sense for them to be unrealistic, but when they're produced by dysfunctional unconscious beliefs, a lot of individuals don't realize that's what they're doing. People who struggle with speaking up, who have the unrealistic expectation that others are going to respect boundaries that they've never communicated, they don't know that they're hurt and angry and frustrated because of an unrealistic expectation. They really believe that they're hurt and frustrated because people are violating their boundaries. But if you don't set a boundary, if you've never articulated the boundary, then it's unrealistic to expect them to respect it. You've never said anything. So that's all for tonight's episode 15 of the Emancipated Mind Show. I'm ending a few minutes early tonight. That's all for tonight. If you would like more information about my work, I'm going to put the link to my website in the comment section. I'm going to put the link to the store page on my website. You can purchase both sets. You can purchase my set of 100 dysfunctional unconscious victim-based beliefs, and you can purchase a set of the 100 most commonly seen villain-based beliefs. They come together in a set, and they come with this workbook. So I'll put the link to my store page in the comments section. I also have other workbooks, such as the adult reenactment of the childhood script, which helps people identify dysfunctional unconscious patterns, scripts from their childhood that they're unknowingly doing in their adult lives. and it gives them instructions on how to make that stop. I also have the workbook, My Unaddressed Issues Make My Budget and My Schedule. Every last one of these dysfunctional unconscious beliefs make demands on people's time and on their money. I also have life coaching packages if you're interested in working with me individually. And so I will put the link to the store, my store page, and the link to the page on my website where you can learn more about my coaching packages. So that's all for episode 15. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care and have a good evening. Thank you for watching the Emancipated Mind Show. Join me every week live on Facebook and YouTube on Thursdays from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about my products and services, feel free to visit my website, AnnesiaConsulting.com, or my website, AnnesiaSpeaks.com. I can also be reached via email at afreeman@AnnesiaConsulting.com. I'll see you next week.